said he just like D, G, like super easy. So I learned that. And then I actually like loved AC/DC for a moment in my life. Because my dad, I think I didn't really have a choice. He'd always play it going, driving me to school.
So our podcast is all about you and your journey in music,
Sweet.
how you got to where you are now, and we'll talk about your first full-length record as
Awesome.
well.
Great. I'm ready.
Cool. From Canada, tell me about where were you born and raised?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised Manitoba, so Winnipeg, right in the center of Canada. And I'm currently in Toronto right now. So grew up full time in Winnipeg till I was around 18, and then started kind of commuting back and forth to Manitoba and Ontario, and spending a lot more time in Toronto now since I'm doing the whole music thing.
Very cool. What was it like growing up in Winnipeg?
Cold winters. A lot of time to make music, so we can get into that later, but I think that's definitely why I am who I am today, is because I grew up there. But definitely a lot of great musicians coming from Winnipeg, and such an amazing community. And yeah, it was a great place to grow up, I think, because it does have kind of a small town vibe, and you just like meet so many people, and there is that sense of community. But it's been fun to come to Toronto, and it's a big world out there, and you realize that the more you travel.
Sure. Wait, so isn't Winnipeg's a capital, right?
Yeah.
And it still has a small town vibe. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, again, maybe I'm just comparing it to Toronto, which I shouldn't, because
No,
Toronto's
but yeah, I guess you're comparing it to more gigantic cities, I guess.
yeah, no, for sure. And I think just by small town vibe, it's like you know someone, you always know like a mutual friend, or you went to high school with their brother or something like that. So that's why I think it kind of has that vibe, but it's not a bad thing. It's
No,
just I
that's
think
cool.
an observation over the years that I've grown to feel.
Sure, very cool. Well, and how did you get into music?
Yeah, good question. So growing up, very musical household. My dad played guitar just like for fun. He was in rock bands when he was young. Never really did anything with it, but definitely lives vicariously, I think, through what I'm doing now.
That's awesome.
I have so many like vivid memories of just going to so many concerts when I was young. So like Hilary Duff, Josh Groban, Dolly Parton. My parents would just take me to every
Wow.
concert. Give me the earplugs, but like had really great seats, and I think that was very inspiring. And I always just like left the concerts feeling so great, like everyone does. And then I think as I got older and I went to these concerts, it was more of a this is really great, but like how can I do that one day? You know, like what does it take to be the person that everyone's going to see, and everyone knows your music? So I guess one thing led to another. My dad taught me some chords on guitar. I started writing through high school. Wrote my first song at around 12 years old. And
Wow.
put out my first single. I think I was around 16 years old. Doesn't exist now online, maybe
Uh,
somewhere.
scrubbed it.
Yeah. But yeah, so like released a song, started recording and just like playing local coffee shops and singing as like a singer in a band, as like a stand-in, like a substitute singer at the odd time.
Mhm.
And yeah, then I was on a television show called The
Yeah.
Launch, and then I was launched, and 2 years later now I'm here, and it's been quite the journey.
Sure. I want to rewind a little bit here. I mean, seeing Dolly Parton. I mean, what was the first concert you went to?
I think it was Hilary Duff at the time.
Really? Were
Yeah,
you? I must have been a fan of hers.
yeah, big fan. I was actually a huge fan of Dolly Parton too. So we had this like family cabin, so we'd always go there when I was younger, and my grandparents would always play Dolly Parton and 9 to 5. I forget the exact album. I think it was maybe her like greatest hits album. It was a collection of a bunch, but 9 to 5, like Islands in the Stream, all these songs are just my like theme songs and anthems growing up. So I feel like an old soul a bit
That's right.
because of that. But yeah, such a great concert. And I believe I'm trying to think, did Casey Musgraves open for her? Someone really great opened
Wow.
for her at the time, which was cool because now obviously
She's huge.
yeah.
Right. Wow, that's cool. Were you a huge Hilary Duff fan as far as like her music career went? Because she's obviously a huge actor as well.
Yeah, I think growing up was it Lizzie McGuire that was like my favorite.
Okay. I
And
was
then
gonna ask if it was Lizzie McGuire, but I didn't know if I was gonna like if I don't know because I remember it
I
being
did
on
think too.
TV.
I did think
Okay.
for a second, but
Okay.
yeah,
Because I was
it's
wondering, because I have a sister who's 11 years younger than me, and she was big into Lizzie McGuire. So I'm like, am I gonna be like thinking too like if you're like, who's like, what's Lizzie McGuire?
No, you're correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it was definitely like the acting thing. I like was a big fan of her, had the posters, and then I realized she was a singer too. So she, I think, inspired me to want to be a pop star when I was younger.
I love that. That's cool. So 12, you picked up guitar. You said your dad played. Did you ever see him play? Like, was he in bands when you were younger, or was that
Um,
done
no,
with
I
at
think
that
it was
point?
kind of done. I was born, and I think I remember he had like 1 or 2 corporate gigs where he like picked up a guitar and was a singer. But like beyond that, it's been very, yeah. He's definitely more of like a businessman now. But I know deep down there's like a rock star in
Sure, sure.
in him.
Was there like a moment that you decided that you wanted to play it? Like, did you have one around the house and you're like, oh, dad, like, can you show me how to play this? Or is it kind of like,
Yeah.
hey, do you
So my
want to check this
dad,
out?
no, of course. So my dad would always play, and then I would ask him when I was younger. I was like, "Can I strum? Like, will you play the chords?" And I
Hmm.
remember it's kind of cute. He would always play like "You Are My Sunshine," and we would like sing it together. So that
Oh,
was like
I
one of
love
the first
that.
songs that he just like D G, like super easy. So I learned that, and then I actually like loved AC/DC for a moment in my life because my dad. I think I didn't really have a choice. He'd always play it going driving me to school. And I was like, I want an electric guitar. So for Christmas, I remember I got this LTD, just like red electric guitar, and it was kind of smaller, so it was easier to play.
Hmm.
So he taught me some chords on that, and then I went to acoustic after that, and then now acoustics kind of it's my baby, it's my comfort zone. So I
Sure.
don't know how to solo or anything crazy, but I think I know enough that I can write.
Nice. And you started writing really young. I mean, 12 years old.
Yeah, those songs, not the best songs, but it's just so funny to look back at what I was writing. It's like writing love songs or breakup songs, and it's like to a breakup to a 12-year-old is like so different from like the actuality of being a 22-year-old and experiencing that. So it's cool, I guess, to look back in retrospect and see that evolution.
Well, you have that timestamp, right? I mean, you
Mm,
could hear where your mind was at when you're
yeah,
12. That's
so
pretty cool to have.
so cool. And I think that's such a cool thing about music and just like being a writer is when you listen to a song that you wrote, it really does like stamp and capture a moment in time, and
Hmm.
it's weird. It can be emotional sometimes, like you listen to a song, let's say I never released, but I wrote post breakup or post like moment in my life where I was kind of like struggling a bit. And it's like, wow, it's so cool. I mean, to see how far you can grow through the music. And it's
Hmm.
very personal obviously,
Right.
like I'm writing about my own life a lot of the time, so it's cool.
That is cool. When was like after you started writing at 12, did you say you had a single out around that same time too?
No, sorry, that came quite a bit later. So
Oh, okay. I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive.
yeah, no, there's some voice memos in my mom's phone. But
Sure.
my first gig, I believe it was at the Winnipeg Folk Festival. We had this massive folk fest, and we had some really great headliners. Keys Musgraves actually headlined a few years back.
Wow.
So I performed on the side stage through this like young performance program. So I got to
Hmm.
do 3 original songs when I was 14. So that was my first
Wow.
moment in front of people on stage beyond being in like grade 2 and singing the Christmas pageant, which I did do.
Oh, there you go. Wow, that's a huge gig especially for a first show. How were you able to land that one?
Just through this like whole application process. There's this resource called Manitoba Music, where I'm from, and they're just really amazing at encouraging youth and young people to do music and show them that it can be a career versus just like a hobby.
Hmm.
So through kind of that newsletter and that whole thing, I found the application process and applied with my 3 original demos that I just like on GarageBand hacked together.
Oh,
I
cool.
was chosen. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, you just recorded them yourself on GarageBand? What, did you just push record and played acoustic guitar and sang over it? Or was it
Basically,
like more produced than that? Oh, wow.
no, I had this little, I think it's called this, is it the snowball microphone? It says Blue on it. I forget the
Oh,
name.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
think Blue's the company, right?
yeah. So you
Okay.
just like this circle with this little tripod,
Uh-huh.
and I just like press record. You can like hear the washer and the dryer in the background.
Oh, sure. No EQ going on.
But it's authentic. It's raw.
Yeah, I love that. Those are the best recordings.
Totally. Yeah, it's interesting. I have a song called Bed Sheets. I released on my EP last
Hmm.
year, and we ended up keeping that like original vocal we did in the demo, and you can like hear some like noises if you really listen to the track. But sometimes you
That's
just can't
cool.
replicate the feeling from when you first write it.
Yeah, there's something to be said about some of that like grit and like having kind
Yeah,
of those cool little almost like
absolutely.
Easter eggs that
Mm.
most people would never hear until they hear you say it, and then it's like going back like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, 100%.
Um, I was gonna ask you like, so you got to play like, oh yeah, I was gonna talking about that show that you got to play. Like Canada really embraces the arts. I feel like, especially as far as music goes,
Yeah.
more than any other country I've ever interviewed somebody from, other than like New Zealand. You guys have similar,
Yeah.
like where you can like apply for these grants and they'll help you like put records together. Like I think that's so cool.
So cool. Yeah, it's incredible. And I think too, like this program that I was like a part of, it's just cool to show people you can make it a career path. Obviously, I mean, I'm still in the works of making that happen.
Hmm.
But it's cool to just even be open to the possibility and showing youth that, in the arts, like you can do it,
Yeah, and
Like
they're
here's
there
the
to help
resources.
support you.
Exactly, which I think is so important because I think a lot of people are creative and they just don't even know it, especially from a
Mhm.
young age.
Yeah, and they don't have the resources or the
Yeah,
funding or or
exactly.
anything like that, and to have them be the country be so supportive of that, I think that's so incredible.
So incredible. Again, even like being on this TV show is just so cool to go through that process. And some like an A&R from the show actually reached out to me from, sorry, I guess fast forward, I was 16, put out the single. Then by 18, I had an EP that I like recorded in like a professional studio, and it was like my
Hmm.
first kind of legitimate recording. So they saw this like music video that I had shot for that with my friend, and they're like, "You should apply to the show." And then one thing led to
Oh,
another. Yeah.
wow. Okay. Well, let's go back real quick, and then I want to hear how you did that. So,
Mhm.
you were 14 when you first started writing, or like that's when you started recording songs. Is that when you
Yeah.
played that show? 14.
14. Yeah.
Okay. And then from 14 to what, 18, were you just working on songs and like what, playing around locally, coffee shops and stuff?
Yeah, so lots of just kind of guitar, like playing Riptide on the ukulele by Vance Joy, all like these like
Love that.
basic things. And then someone reached out to me. They're in this local band, and they're like, "Hey, our singer is like traveling in Thailand. Can you come and learn these songs and sing for us?" I was like, "Sure." Should have looked up what I was signing up for. I had to do like "Kids" by MGMT, "Breeze Blocks" by Alt J, all these like crazy obscure songs that
Oh, wow. Yeah.
for my voice are definitely a bit strange. So I did that, and
That's cool. That's
yeah,
quite a cover band. I mean, like Breeze Blocks by All J, like
I know, pretty crazy. And
wow.
it was at one of the gigs was like at this bar, so my parents had to come with me because I was underage. But that was definitely a cool experience seeing more at the time. It was like more legitimate musicians playing in a band who actually got booked for a gig and probably got paid $500. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
They're playing shows for free. This is so cool. So that also really inspired me because it was just cool and being on stage and realizing that, like I could maybe do this. It could be a
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah, was it hard to like work the crowd as far as like being underage at a bar and you're playing to people that are older than you? Was that a different?
Yeah, I don't remember saying much. I think it was just
Okay.
next song looking back, like, okay,
Okay. We're gonna start now.
exactly. Yeah, you count your head. 1, 2, 3. No in ears, just like the monitor with all this feedback. But hey,
Sure.
it's all. I think it got me here, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
it's
all
all
important.
stepping stones. Right, right. And then when did you put out that EP? You said 18,
I believe, yeah, was it 2017? So I was around 18 years old.
and you just went to you had a bunch of songs, you what booked some studio time and decided to really go for it?
Yeah, I had two. I think I had 2 to 3 songs that I just had written fully on my own, and then
Mhm.
I met this producer named Murray Pulver, who's really awesome and great, and kind of like a legend in Manitoba, and has produced some really awesome stuff. And he had a studio, and then he set up a co-writing session. So that was also the first my introduction to that, because before then I was just picking up my guitar, writing a full song, and just recording it.
Mhm.
So that got me into, I think, songwriting in a deeper level and just
Sure.
realizing that, yeah, my songs are good. Like there's this whole art to songwriting, and maybe I should
Mhm.
repeat this part. Or because before then, my songs were very, I think, a bit more like abstract and weird and didn't make tons of sense, which is cool.
Uh-huh.
But you realize like it is nice to make some more structured, pretty sounding songs.
Yeah.
Working with them, this guy named Roman Clark, who's still a dear friend of mine today, and then Murray, we recorded, and my parents are super supportive and excited, so they helped me fund those 2 songs, and then put out the EP
Mm-hmm.
completely like independently. I was like managing myself. I was emailing people to like book me. I was doing that all on my own. Found out what TuneCore was at the time. I was like,
Okay.
this is crazy. This is so cool.
Yeah.
And I think that was my introduction into the music industry per se.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got nominated for a Western Canadian Music Award for Pop Artist of the Year from that EP, which was really, really cool.
Oh, wow. And this is all prior to being on the show and everything.
Yeah, it is.
Wow. Was that just through word of mouth? Like, how do you get, I mean, that's a huge, thing to be
Yeah,
nominated for, right?
it is huge. Yeah, so I applied for it. You just like
Okay.
submit your body of work. You can like submit your streaming numbers, but honestly, at that time, I didn't even really understand what Spotify was. If I'm being completely honest, it was just like you release music and you don't really look at the numbers. You just it's out there and that's
Right.
the end. Right now, it's
Mm-hmm.
like I understand there's a whole algorithm and playlists and stuff like that being with a label, but so it was a big growing experience for me because that led to the launch, which again kind of leveled up this whole perspective on the industry and song and pop music and yeah.
Was it going into that first co-writing session, was it hard to do that? I mean, I'd imagine you're now having to be vulnerable in front of somebody you probably don't know at
Mhm.
all or very well and kind of express your feelings to them and show them like songs that you've written. Was that what was that like?
Yeah, I think if I'm being honest, I think I actually really thrived in that environment and just loved having people to share ideas with and bounce ideas off of because
Uh-huh.
it's kind of a one-way street when you're writing a song by yourself. And I think the songs that right now I do have a bit more understanding on songwriting, so I can kind of structure a song. But back then it was like I almost had too many ideas and I didn't know if it was a good song and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So working with people and talking about it was a really fun experience for me, but definitely nerve wracking. And even some sessions now, I think if I'm working with like bigger artists or bigger producers, sometimes I get nervous and I like won't share all my like immediate ideas. I like meditate on it for a sec. I'm like, this is a good idea, but the best songs just happen when you spitball everything, good and bad.
That's cool. And from there, from that EP and getting nominated for the Pop Artist of the Year with the Western Canadian Music Awards, like that all kind of set the stage for eventually becoming, winning, right? The launch or being on the show. What so how are you said it was a video that they approached you based on, or like tell me about the process of being, you know, even asked by them. I can imagine that was a big moment for you.
It was a big moment. Yeah, I distinctly remember. I worked at this candle shop and I had my laptop open. I got this email and the subject line was like TV show. What the heck is this? Probably some spam, but I opened it.
Right.
It's like, hey, we saw this song of yours and we saw the video. We this show like involves up and coming artists and we love that you write your own music. Fill out the application process and we'll kind of take it from there. So I never would have thought to even do something like that, but I mean the universe works in mysterious ways, so I'm happy I did. So I filled out
Yeah.
that whole application, and it wasn't cryptic, but then you get emails like, okay, there's like 2,000 people we've narrowed it down to. You're like in that top 2,000. We'll keep you updated, and then it keep kind of be narrowing down, and then it got up to what was it? I think like 40 people, and they were only shooting, let's say, 35 people for the show. So it's like hold this time to shoot the show, but we're not sure if you're going to be on it yet and all this stuff. So it was definitely a stressful process because now I'm all set on being on this TV show.
Yeah, that must have been exciting. Did you, when you first saw the email, were you just kind of like, did you know what the launch was? I mean, they had a season prior to that, right?
Yeah, I wasn't actually super familiar until I Googled it and I Googled the artist. I'm like, oh, I know these songs. So I kind of put two and two together that these songs came from that show. So that got
Hmm.
me excited because I'm like, hey, this is legit. This isn't, this isn't
Yeah.
scammy. This is cool. Um,
Okay.
I got the email to be on the show. I think it ended up being like 3 months later. They finally narrowed it down. We're like, okay, you can't tell anyone, signed all these contracts. Like, this is exclusive, NDAs. And they flew me to Toronto.
Wow.
And
And none of these were phone calls. This is all over the. I mean, I can.
There were some
Was it
phone
less
calls.
exciting? Like when you're like, okay, now I got this email saying that I'm on the show. Like nobody was like, hey, congratulations, you. Or did that end up happening?
There were a few calls, but the whole
Okay.
process was definitely kind of low key, and I had no idea what to expect. And I think it really hit me when I was in the dressing room and there's like all these people, and it's like you kind of get this. I don't want to call it fake, but you got this team for the duration of the show, right? So it's like a publicist and all these people that I have now who are on my actual team, right? But it's
Right. Oh, they kind of put you in a team. They put together almost like a team of people around you that
yeah,
really emulates like what a real artist would
exactly,
have. Oh,
exactly.
wow.
Yeah, once you kind of get chosen, and so went through the whole audition process, got selected, recorded the song, did live performance, and obviously throughout this, I'm kind of intimidated because I'm used to writing folk music with my guitar and like performing live with that guitar, right? So they kind of take that away and they're like, okay, like work the stage. I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do?
Yeah. Oh, so tell me about how the show works then. So they give you the song prior to do you just work on one song throughout the whole season? It's not like a
Yeah,
competition like
it's an interesting.
American Idol or something like that where
No,
you
so the
okay.
whole thing happens very quickly. So there's 5 episodes and there's actually winners per episode.
Oh, okay.
So each episode has 5 people and you perform for judges or mentors. So I had like Scott Brichetta, I had Jan Arden, who's like an amazing Canadian artist,
Mm-hmm.
Sean Frank, and Marine May, Francophone artist in Canada. And you um, perform with your own like covers or your own songs. And then of those 5 people who perform, they choose 2 people to then make it to the next round, which is all within 1 episode. So it's 2 days. It's an insane process.
Wow.
Yeah, so 2 people and they have this song and it's like a radio hit record. That's what they call it. And I mean, it did
I
well.
mean, it was a huge record.
Yeah, it was so cool. So then you have that song that's already written by like
Uh-huh.
amazing writers and you go and you record your version of it. So there's 2 people competing, recording kind of their own authentic versions of that song.
Oh.
And from that, you perform it to a live studio audience, and then the judges, I guess, crown a winner.
So you and somebody else are performing the same song and they choose
The version,
almost who
like,
did it better. Yeah.
yeah, which is
Wow.
wild. It was such an interesting experience, and I think I did actually really like the format of the show because it did focus on building an artist versus like here just sing all these covers and
Right.
like American Idol and stuff. They do that sometimes.
That well, that's the whole show, right? I mean, that's
Exactly.
cool that they did that. I mean, instead of like, okay, how well can you sing this,
Mhm.
Lady Gaga song? It's like, well, I mean,
Yeah.
I have my own opinion on those shows, and it's interesting because I've talked to actually a few people that had a handful of people actually that had been on the show or got
Wow.
really
Yeah.
far or won the show or whatever, and it's like they it's like you have to fit in this certain mold right away, right? They're not gonna. It's interesting. You can tell who they're gonna choose. As
Yeah.
bad as it sounds, like who's gonna kind of make the top people, and when it gets to those top people, it's like who's the most marketable, and then of course
Mhm.
they always go with the most marketable person. But to have almost like a one-on-one competition with the same song, that makes a lot more sense.
For sure, and in the studio, like the producer Sean Frank, which he actually produced a big portion of my album that's coming out, which is cool. We've kind of made
Oh, rad.
yeah,
Okay.
super cool. But he just kind of let me. He's like, throw whatever harmonies you want on this, like kind of just do your thing. So it was kind of my first moment that I got to play around with the whole pop sound, which
Uh-huh.
I had always wanted to kind of evolve to. But being in Winnipeg, I feel like there weren't the right producers, and I just didn't have the resources to make pop music. I was kind of stuck making more like folk music.
Uh-huh.
So this show kind of helped push me into the direction I wanted to go,
Okay.
versus push me somewhere that I was uncomfortable going. And it was uncomfortable and stressful in the moment because this was all new to me, but
Uh-huh.
it did end up really, I mean, essentially launching my career, I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. Yeah, because it obviously brought you to people's attention at that point. I mean,
Mhm.
being on TV, and now it's like, oh, what's Olivia up to?
For sure. Yeah. And I think I've definitely made just like a bit of a departure from that exact song and sound, but it has
Uh-huh.
been fun to work with Sean and AJ Haley, another producer, who's like behind the scenes on the show, and kind of make my own sound, but still play off of that single "I Got You." So it's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Wow. Well, tell me about that. That you put out another EP last year, right? Called
For the ones I
to the
love.
ones I loved. And with that EP, like, were you working with any of those same people, or it wasn't until the full length record?
Yeah, so I worked with AJ Healy, who he works like with Sean Frank, but not quite Sean Frank yet. Um,
Okay.
so he's his kind of like engineer and stuff like that. So he reached out to me about a year after the show, and he's like, "What's up? If you ever want to like write, like feel free to come by the studio," which is
Mm-hmm.
really cool. So I did exactly that. I had a few songs that I had written, and I wanted to work with him to kind of rework them into this pop sound.
Okay.
Other than Bed Sheets, which is like the ballad, which I still love that song.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we worked on that and put it out, and it was received fairly well. And then leading into this album, we ended up getting Sean involved because he's a great writer and producer as well. So it's been fun to kind of slowly elevate everything and level up, I guess, music wise.
Uh-huh. With well, you said bed sheets. You recorded what? Like it was almost like the first EP, right? You said you recorded the vocals pretty like by yourself, or like tell me about that because you said it
Yeah,
had like some grit to it.
yeah. So I wrote that with AJ in the studio one night after we'd already kind of had a full day of sessions,
Uh
and
huh.
I was just about to leave, and I was like, oh, like maybe for next week, like I have this idea, I'll show it to you, and I showed it to him, and he loved it, and we're like, okay, screw it, let's just sit down and see what we can do tonight. So it was like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. and we borrowed the guitar, and I like played him the idea that I had, and it was just like the opening lyric. It was like cigarette inside your hand, wish you would hold me like that. And then from that, we ended up writing this kind of poemy song thing. And we're like, okay, let's just demo it quick because we wrote the whole song within, I guess, a few hours.
Wow.
I like hopped in the vocal booth, did a quick vocal, and it was definitely like an emotional song for me at the time because I
Uh huh.
just like, ended this relationship. So he's like, "This is good. We'll get all the emotion. Just like go and sing it." So I sung it, and then we kind of just kept that demo for a week. And we're like, okay, I don't know how much more needs to be done. Like vocally, we can add some harmonies, but this this vocal slaps. Like this is great. So
Right.
we kept that vocal, and he just went and added some more guitars, and it's a very simple song, but again, sometimes that's I think the most beautiful thing about a song is it's just like raw and it just is what it is.
Sure. Sure.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, that record came out last year
Yeah.
during the whole pandemic. Tell me, where were you when that all happened, and like, did it affect that EP? And I'm sure it affected the new record a little bit as well.
Yeah, so I think that I'm trying to even think now my quarantine COVID brain. I'm like, what year are we in?
Right.
So that, yeah, we released that through, I guess, this whole COVID thing just right when it was starting. I think right when we went into lockdown. Um, a few months later, we released my first single, "Think of Me." So
Okay.
yeah, it's definitely a different way of releasing things because there's no live performance element,
Mm-hmm.
which usually like you release a record and you like try to get on a tour or like have a show. So we
Sure.
had to adapt, and at that time, I was really just growing my team. My brother came on as like a full time manager,
Rad.
and yeah, it's so great. And then we were just slowly kind of trying to build this team, and now I have an amazing team. But at that moment, it was kind of just the two of us, and we didn't really know what to do. And we're like, let's just put the music out. Like, what else is there to do right now?
Mhm.
So we released one song, and slowly got some attention from that, and then had some calls, and yeah, just put together our team, still kind of being fully independent, and yeah, just kind of kept releasing music up until I guess June of last year. And
Mhm.
then from June to August, I was just like in Winnipeg with my family, with my parents, kind of hanging out like all of us were,
Right, right.
writing a bit of music. And then I ended up coming to Toronto to just hang out for about 6 months and did some virtual sessions and wrote with AJ and Sean. And that's when we started writing for the album that's coming out this July, I guess a
Mhm.
year later. So it's a bit of a
Wow.
skewed timeline. Sorry, my brain's like, I haven't even
Well,
thought about that in a
I
while.
think
But
it's still. I mean, most people are probably thinking it's still 2019. I mean, let's be
yeah,
honest. Like,
I know.
what a year and a half it's been.
Oh, no kidding.
For as far as like writing goes, was it hard to adapt to like the Zoom writing sessions? Like, how did you feel about doing those?
Yeah, definitely a different energy and environment in a Zoom session. But we did get some really good stuff. I mean, it's better than not writing at all, right? So
Right.
thank God for technology, but there you can't beat a real in person session when you like hang out for the first 2 hours and then you kind of write a song or you write a full song. It's way more organic, I think, when it's less like, okay, we have 5 hours, let's sit down and write a song.
Right. It's more like business right up front, right? I mean, you get on
Yeah,
the call, you don't know the person very well, and you're like, okay, I have this like chord progression or something. Like, how do
no,
you even
totally.
begin? Do you have you? I mean, you must have to come to the table with something, right? You can't just be
Yeah.
like, let's try to figure something out.
Yeah, I think usually depending on the session, like either it depends who you're writing for as well, right? It's like all come in with an idea and be like, you like this, and either yes or no, or someone like a producer will come in with like a full track and we'll write to a track. But I think in my best sessions, the most creative sessions, someone usually comes in with like a concept or a theme for a song. Even if they don't have lyrics, it's more of like a, okay, let's try to do this thing, and then you walk out with more of a fuller song versus
Mhm.
starting from full scratch, unless someone has been going through a lot and they have lots to share.
Sure.
But it's interesting.
Yeah. Is it hard to be? I mean, were most of the people that you wrote with over Zoom people you had written with in the past?
I think every person who I wrote with over this whole quarantine period was like a new person.
Oh, it was a new person that you had never written with.
Yeah, which was
Wow.
very interesting. But it's
Yeah.
great and so nice to connect with people. I think I've just missed that the most. I mean, we're slowly opening up here back in Canada, but just like the whole human interaction thing is nice.
Right. I know Canada's kind of, you guys are kind of on
Little
the one of
behind.
the last ones to kind of open up, right?
Yeah, here in Toronto, patios just open, so I'm hoping to maybe even later tonight, just like go for a walk, see people, being with people. It's so
Oh, they
weird.
just opened up patio. So now you can at least go and like see somebody in an outdoor setting.
Yes, which is
That's
great.
nice.
Yeah.
That
What
is
about
nice.
where are you in the world?
I just moved to Nashville. My family and I moved to Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh,
I originally, my whole family, we're all from San Diego, California.
oh,
So I grew up
beautiful.
in Southern California, and then this is all new to us. I mean, we
Yeah.
took our kids, picked up, and moved, all the way east, and because they were open here. I mean, our kids could go to school in person and
Mm-hmm.
all of that, which was totally
A
different.
selling point. Yeah, of course. That's
Yeah.
it.
So, I mean, California was pretty locked down when we left, and now it's starting. I think actually today, June 15th, they're supposed to open up everything. So I don't know if that's happening. I guess I could call my family and ask, but it's been pretty much open like for at least a month here, where
Wow,
no
that's
man.
great.
I mean, last night my younger son's in. He does hip hop dance,
Oh,
and
cool. Good for him.
yeah, so we were downtown Nashville, and I mean, it was like it was like 2018 down there. I mean,
Oh,
bars are rocking, and the hundreds of people are gathering around each other with no masks on. It was just bizarre.
yeah. I can't even imagine being like a young kid during this time too. It just must have been so strange to not see your friends. And I mean, it's been isolating for us all, but especially just being a kid.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the people I feel really bad for were like the high school seniors that are missing like all of those like little,
Mom,
prom and milestones like that. And not only that, like maybe the kids that were getting like scholarships for sports, like and having all those things shut down. It's like, what do they do? Are you not going to college, obviously, to play, say, basketball at some big university or whatever? I mean, I don't know, but those are the people that I'm like, I mean, everybody, it sucks, but those kids, I'm like, ow, I really feel bad for them, like in that aspect.
so
Well,
crazy.
yeah. So you're signed with Universal Music, right? Correct. And
Yes.
when did that, was that a relationship that formed on the earlier or that second EP, the one that came out in 2020, or is this a new venture for you?
This has been a fairly new venture, I believe. Was it November of 2020? I think we signed. I
Yeah.
think.
So towards the end of last year.
Yeah, so it's been less than a year, but it's been incredible.
What was that like? I mean, signing to a major label, that's huge. It's kind of the goal, right?
Yeah, it's been incredible. So my brother and I and our business partner Jerry, we founded a music label called Infinity and
Uh-huh.
Record, and um, through that whole thing, we got a connection with Universal Music for a distribution deal, which has been really cool. So it's been a learning curve in terms of being the artist, in terms of being someone involved in the business side, in terms of everything. It's been quite the year, but I'm grateful for it. Universal has been so incredible and shown so much support. So I'm excited to get this album out there with them.
That's huge. That's huge. And the record's coming out next month?
July 9th. Yes.
Very cool. And you have at least you have a couple singles out now, right?
Yeah, I put out one a few weeks ago, Who Could Say No, and then the one
Uh-huh.
before that was Sad to See You Happy.
Very cool. And was there like with Sad to See You Happy, for example, the first single, was there a reason that you selected that as the single and the next one moving forward, or how did that selection
Yeah,
process go?
I mean, it's always so hard by the end of, I think, that the cycle when you're trying to just figure everything out. Everyone has so many opinions, and I change my mind every day. I'm like, wait, what if the single should have been this other one that's like a B-side? But I think at the end of the day, that one felt the most, it just felt right, and it felt like it's a good transition from that EP kind of into this album, because it's still pop, it's still kind of indie pop. And I worked with some really great writers on that, Jensen Bond, as well as Sean and AJ. So it just felt right and summery and fun. We got to do a music video in LA for that one. So it kind of just chose itself. Everyone's like, yeah, this one feels good. I kind of get my feeling, if that makes sense.
Sure, no, it makes total sense. It's cool. And you've done some of the live streaming things, right? I saw you did like the Dunkin' Latte Lounge and some of these other, like, how do you feel about doing those performances?
It's different. They're great. Again, better than not performing at all. But it's very strange to not have other people to connect with. Just
Mm-hmm.
the camera. You kind of have to try to like emulate that energy of people being pumped up just with yourself, which is kind of hard to do sometimes. But I'm learning. I'm working on it.
You had a little bit of experience with that. Was there always a live audience when you did the launch, or no? Or were you performing to a camera prior?
For the live performance at the end, there was a live studio audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like you had that kind of experience with just you and a camera.
Right. No, I've done like acoustic things more virtually, but again, I think it's different to pick up guitar and like sing to a camera versus like perform a whole
Right.
to a camera.
I'm sure you're excited to get out and play this record to the world.
Yes. Wow. I'm so excited. And I'm even just excited. I'm like already thinking beyond that. I'm like, I can't wait to make even more music and write with more people in person, and hoping to go back to LA shortly, like sometime this summer. So
Mhm.
just excited in general for life to hopefully be back to normal and just to share this music and perform it live. I can't wait to do that.
Yeah, I can't wait too. I mean, it's been a long ride for all of us. So hopefully sooner than later, especially I mean, at least stuff's opening up now in Canada for you guys. So
Yes,
I think
finally.
that's amazing. Yeah.
Knock on wood.
So,
I hope it's for real.
Yeah. I hope you enjoy going out tonight or today and seeing some people on the patios.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me. This was so great and so nice.
No, I really appreciate you being on. Thank you so much. I have one more question for you before I let you go, though.
Yeah. What's up?
Do you have any advice for aspiring artists?
Yeah, I would just say persistence and just keep doing you, keeping authentic. I think at the end of the day, people resonate with music the most when it's real and it's raw and it's you. People can see through something that's not you. So be authentic and stay persistent, because good things come to those who work hard.
Bringing it back